Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of many videos that we'll do this semester about putting speeches together for online public speaking, or if you're in the hybrid class, these things will work pretty well. This talk is just about basics. So some of the basic things. I'm going to try to use the whiteboard. You'll have to let me know what you think of the whiteboard, if you think it works or if you think it's terrible. Please put your comments below. I'm happy to adjust. I can put slides in or whatever. In the end, I want these videos to be useful for you, not just, some stupid like exercise or thing that we have to do because we're in class. I want it to actually be useful and to help you make some decisions about what you're going to speak about and all of that. So the first thing is what you're probably thinking, okay, how long do I need to speak? And what should I speak about? These are the two biggest questions for this course. So some of you even already emailed me about it. So I would say for most speeches that you'll ever give in your life, unless you become a politician or a real expert in something, you're not going to be asked to speak for more than 10 minutes about pretty much anything. Any invitation you get, this is the max that you're going to speak, 10 minutes about anything. So my feeling is that we should work up to that. I don't think you'll ever give a 10-minute speech in here. You might, since we're asynchronous for the most part, and since the speeches are online, 10 minutes is really the max. One of the things about YouTube is that people don't watch a video over 6 minutes. So if you can get what you have to say in about 6 to 8 minutes, I think you're really good for viewer retention. For getting people to pay attention to everything that you had to say. So I think that's a super important consideration. For a podcast, though, people tend to tolerate longer podcasts, 30, 45 minutes. I don't want you doing that. I just want you practicing with the idea of speaking to an audience without them being able to see you. This is a very important thing to practice because that's kind of the new public speaking. People are getting most of their information from podcasts and from videos like this one. We're just kind of talking at the camera. So 10 minutes for a speech, for a traditional speech. So for this first speech and for most of your speeches, if you hit somewhere between 5 to 8 minutes, you're going to be good. So always aim for about 5 to 8 minutes. If you can see that. Again, let me know if the whiteboard is good. 5 to 8 minutes, that's what we're shooting for in terms of length. So plan that, and it'll be easy to do if you think about what constitutes a good speech. And there are lots of different things you have to consider in that. The primary one is that what makes sense to you may not make sense to your audience. Now that's something worth thinking about for a minute. What is obvious, what is logical, what is right, is something you don't have to think about. Your mind, your brain is a powerful, powerful thing, and it can just jump across things that seem obvious or seem like really good ideas. You don't have to reflect on those. But people who are not you will wonder why. They'll say, why do I have to do that? Why does that make sense? You need to provide that explanation. So most speech is offering to the audience an explanation based on reasons, based on information, based on research, or based on telling a very compelling story, or providing detail that will help them understand and arrive at the conclusion that you want them to. So let's skip ahead a little bit to something we're going to be reading near the end of the class on Aristotle and talk about maybe the three different kinds of classical speech that you can have. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so there are much fancier terms for what I have. Oh, there you are. Hello. I was looking in the wrong place. There are much fancier terms than what I have up here for this, but this is the basics of what Aristotle believed to be the three things you can talk about. Speeches about the past, about the present, and about the future. There are fancier terms, and I think in the textbook he might use the fancier terms, so let's put them up here. Okay, so those are the fancier terms for it. Forensic, epideictic, and deliberative. Now, this is all very simple. What it means is speeches about the past are topics that deal with something of historical import. Speeches about the present deal with things that are happening now, and often that's with value. Like, why are we where we are? Why do we care about this? Why should we care about this? And future is what should we do? So, what happened? What do we care about? What should we care about? What do we do moving forward? These are the three things that Aristotle thought encapsulated pretty much every speech you could ever give, or any reason why you would address people. And I think this pretty much holds up. I'd be curious to see what you think if you look in the if you leave something in the comments. But dealing with the past is like questions about, well, was this person guilty of something? Did this person act in a certain way? Can we make that judgment? This is called forensic, and you might recognize the term from all these TV shows that are very popular about forensic science and the courtroom and things like that. It's about what happened. So if you ever want to give a speech that answers the question, what happened, that would be a good speech to give. That's one of the ways to brainstorm. Is you can think, well, can I give a speech about something that happened in the past that is good, or that would be interesting to the audience, or good for them to know about? Speeches about the present are ones that people really like to give. That's about what's wrong with our society now. Why don't we value what we should value? What do we care about? What should we care about? You know, normative claims like that. Why do we celebrate this holiday? Why don't we celebrate this holiday properly? There was a lot of stuff on TikTok, for example, last couple of days ago about Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which was Monday this week, the week that I'm filming this. Lots of people saying we don't celebrate that holiday for what it should be celebrated for. So it'd be an epideictic speech, or a speech about the present. It's also any speech saying, here's why we celebrate this holiday, here's what Dr. King's legacy was, etc. That would be that kind of speech. So any speech you want to give, you can brainstorm and say, what's something that we value, or something we should value, that doesn't get valued properly, or why do we celebrate this? Why is this important? Why does this matter to us? It's a speech about principles, and a speech about what we stand for. Future is about what should we do. Usually this takes on the traditional form of problem solution. It could be a number of other things. It could be something like, we have this thing coming up. What are some of the things we could do about it? It also could be a critique of a particular plan of how to handle something. So if you want to give a speech about a proposal of something that should be done or should change, and it doesn't have to be governmental, it could be on the personal level, like you should stop buying and consuming meat, you should go vegan, vegetarian. That would be a speech about the future. But all of these could be done in any form. That a topic could be done in any way. It just provides a different kind of dynamic. So for example, let's talk about becoming vegan or vegetarian. You could do it in any one of them, right? So past, how was veganism invented? Who came up with it? What's the history of veganism? Where did it come from? That would be a great speech, wouldn't it? That'd be super interesting. You'd want to hear a podcast on that, or a recording on that, or you'd want to watch a short YouTube video on that, I would imagine. The present. Why are people vegan? What does it matter? Why is it ethically important to be vegan or vegetarian? Or why are people vegetarian, vegan? Because they value their health. It's good for their health. So that would be this one. It just kind of celebrates the reasons, or shows the principles or values involved in something that people are doing now. The last one, the future, deliberative. How do you become a vegan or vegetarian? What are the steps that you should take? What research should you do? How do you go about doing it? How can you ease yourself into that? You know, people talk about things like Meatless Monday and stuff like that. That would be a good speech for that, for the future, for deliberative stuff. So this is a great way. This is Aristotle trying to explain what speeches are out there, but this would be a really great way to think about how to brainstorm and come up with different speeches. You could take any topic you want and anything you want to do and brainstorm through this thing, and it'll give you kind of a sense of where you want to go with that. And that's, I would say, step one in thinking about what kind of speech you want to do. This gets more complicated as we go, so I'll take you into, I think in the next lecture, we'll talk in more detail about that in the next video. But in this video, I just want to do kind of some of the simple stuff. So that's one of the places that we might start. And now I'll give you kind of the simple way to go about organizing it or putting a speech together. Okay, so any speech, as you probably are well aware, has 3 parts to it, just like any paper that you've written or any high school class or anything you've had where the teacher's like, here's how to organize a paper. All that comes from the ancient tradition of speech. Now, it's the study of rhetoric, which I'll probably make another video on. And actually on this channel, there are a bunch of videos about rhetoric if you want a deeper dive into that. But for now, for the purposes of this class, think of rhetoric as the study of how to use your words to change the viewpoints of other people. Not necessarily to persuade them, but to get them to see the world a little differently than they do. And that's the study of rhetoric. So that's everything from writing and poetry to giving speeches to teaching even counts as rhetoric. Anytime I'm using my words to try to get you to go, oh, okay, didn't think about that before, we're using rhetoric, trying to get different understandings, different perceptions, perspectives across the people. So the very first part of any good speech is the introduction, and it has 3 parts to it that you're going to need to put into your presentation. Attention, some way of getting attention. The thesis, which is your point, and then a roadmap. So let's talk about each one of these in detail. The attention part is the part most people leave out. Most of the time, you'll see people say something like, good morning, good afternoon. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for me to start a video that way, because I don't know what time of day. It might be 2 in the morning when you're watching this. And obviously, I've got the sun coming in here. I didn't record this in the middle of the night. So you want to think about, how do I get attention? And you want to start with something that the audience already cares about quite a bit or values quite a bit, and talk about that to get them interested, because there's no better way to get somebody interested in listening to you than to talk about what they already believe and think is great. So try to start there in some way of something they already believe in, something they already care about, something they already value, to get their attention. And then when you move into the thesis, you can introduce yourself, talk about who you are, and what it is you want to talk about. So attention is something that we're going to focus on a lot in this class because it's a huge subject. How do I get an audience to listen to me when they could be doing anything else? Like, this is such a challenge today. We all have one of these things, right? A telephone, right? Just to use a boomer term for it. But mobile phone. I can look up information about anything in the world very quickly and easily and at relatively very little cost. Why would I want to listen to you talk about it? What's the value you bring? And a lot of times the attention getter solves that problem, because it says, I'm one of you, I understand what you value, I see the world your way. Come with me and let's explore this new idea in the terms that you're already familiar with and that you already really, really care about. So think about it like that. What are some ways I can get across it? There's simple ways to do it, asking a question or telling a story, something like that. These are very simple ways to get that idea across. So think about that. The thesis is the point to your speech. The point. What is it that you want the audience to do at the end of the speech? What is it that you're going to do? And there's no reason to hide it. There's no reason to be coy. There's no reason to keep it mysterious. What you want to do with this, I'm standing like in front of it, what you want to do with a thesis is make sure that the audience knows exactly what it is that you're going to try to accomplish with them today. No need to hide it. No need to wait till the end or anything like that. Get it out there, get it across to them, and it would be good. So, how do we do that? Well, after we've gotten attention, we could say, I would like to let you know why veganism matters, or I would like to give you some tips and some ideas about how to become vegan, just using our earlier example. But it could be anything like that. It could be maybe in this speech I'm going to explain exactly what the New York Giants need to do to be successful next season, or whatever it is you want to talk about. If you're doing something forensic, the thesis might be like, in this speech I'm going to convince you why LeBron James is the best basketball player who's ever played the game. That would be much more of a forensic kind of topic, as opposed to like an epidictic one where it might be like, here's why you should respect and admire LeBron James as a basketball player. Something like that. So this can go a number of different ways. It just really kind of helps you get that flavor and that angle you want on the speech. But there's no reason to hide what it is you're going to do from the audience. That gives you no advantage. Be very upfront, very direct. So Here's why you should pay attention to me and why this matters to you. Here's what I'm going to do. And then the roadmap is, what are we going to cover? So think about this as like looking at the GPS and looking at the entire route before you start driving. You're looking at the whole route and how it's going to take you, how are you going to go. Then when you're going through it, you kind of have in your head a sense of, oh yeah, I'm going to take this road in a few miles, I better get over to the right lane or whatever. This helps the audience do that instead of just launching them into a trip where they don't have a sense of the overall plan of how we're going to get there. So those are the three things that you absolutely have to do at the beginning. Get attention in some way, establish a thesis, and give the roadmap. We don't want to have presentations where you say, oh, my name is so-and-so, good morning, and I'm here to talk to you about. Don't do that. You'll lose a lot of points on the assignment that way, but also, more importantly, you've communicated to them that this is just a speech, and it has no relation to their life. A good attention getter shows it's exactly right in the heart of what they already value, what they already feel, what they already respect, what they already believe. So that concentration in something they already believe in does a lot of work for you, and they'll say, wow, okay, I want to listen to this. This is very valuable. This is important to me. Because you've already communicated this at the heart of what they already believe. Now we're going to take a look at what the main part of the speech should look like. Okay, here we see we have the three main points. Well, here we have what goes into each main point. A lot of times people say, well, how many main points should I have in a speech? Well, it depends. A main point is something that you feel is essential to making your case. Think about any speech as a case that you're making. The thesis is what you're hoping the audience at the end will say, I agree. That'd like be the ultimate goal of any speech. Even a speech that's primarily designed to inform, which is very rare, you still want them saying, I agree to what? This is important information for me to know. So how do I get there? How do I do that? Well, you will think about big points that you need to make, and those are your main points. I'd say any speech should have somewhere between 3 to 5 main points. I don't think you could really need to go much further than that, especially if we're only speaking for, 5 to 8 minutes, something like that, like I said about earlier in the video. It's anything that substantially supports a reason for the thesis. So that's what a main point is. So let's go down to what goes into each main point, and then we'll kind of go back and talk about maybe an example of it. So, proof. That's the first thing. Now, this is the subject of a lot of controversy, especially in this day and age, because we think we live in the post-fact society. Newsflash, we've always been in the post-fact society. Facts are socially constructed through disciplines and through human activity. And those are things that we just don't really need to go through the exhaustive depth of proving from scratch every single time we use them. Facts are generally agreed upon states of affairs or reality. But that's not the only thing you can use to prove. You could tell a story. You can give examples, explanations. You can give statistics. You can give the testimony of an expert. Anything at all that you think supports the main point that you're trying to make. So think about it like this. I'm making a point here that will help you understand the thesis. Here's why that point is true. Here's why you should believe it. That's proof. Then the explanation. How does this support this? That's not going to be obvious. You can't just tell a statistic and hope the audience gets it. You have to do some work in there to say, here's how this proof supports this point. You have to do that explanatory work. Remember, it might seem stupid to you, but this is how you see the world. Everyone else has preconceptions about what constitutes the world, what's important, and what matters. So you have to do the work to connect those things for them. You're not just going to be able to hope for the best or hope that the information stands out on its own. So explain how the proof supports the point. Then the next part is you take all that in the connection point and you show, here's how this connects back to my thesis. So let's take a break and go down this here. So here's my first point that I'm going to analyze with you in the speech. Here's why I think it's true. Here's my proof for that. Here's how I see the proof supporting that. Now here's why this point connects and proves the thesis. Right? So we're working in very simple terms to make sure the audience is with us the entire time. We don't want to lose anybody during this process. And to be understood is the most important thing in speech. I have a video about that too that I can link to you that's on this channel about the different levels of speech success. After you do the connection, then we have to transition. Transition is where you take this and you move us to the next main point. So now that we have covered this point, and you see how that supports the thesis, the next thing we have to do is investigate X, and that'll be the moving to your next point. So the point is to keep it very easy to follow, very clear how this is working in terms of the larger picture and the smaller picture, and that you're not leaving the audience anything to chance in how they put things together. You're giving them the way you see it, which is, public speaking, very egotistical, very self-centered kind of thing. This is how I see it, this is how I put it together, and this is how I want you to see it. It gives them a fair chance, an ethical chance to kind of come to terms with the way you see things and whether they want to agree with your main thesis. This gives them the best chance. So think about that organization for your basic organization for your speeches. Okay, so final thing in this opening lecture that we're going to look at is the conclusion. The last part of the speech. What do you leave the audience with? You can't say, oh, that's it, I'm done, that's all I have. That's not going to work because that creates a very shocking, that's like getting hit with ice water after you have spoken. They're not going to have anything to take with them. They're not going to have any reason to continue to think about it because you've just declared it's over. That wipes the mind and prepares the audience for the next thing that's coming. So with this last part of the speech is the conclusion, which you would transition to after your last main point and say, do you remember how we got here, where we started on this journey? Where did we start? So think about that attention getter and how to remind them of why it was so important for them to pay attention to you at the beginning. What was that value? What was that thing they care about? What was that cultural niche thing that the audience all believes to be true? Or the place where you started, where you brought them all together to listen to you and communicated how important it was for them to pay attention. That's what you're going to remind them of. Remember why you decided to listen to me in the first place. Then you'll say, here are the main points that we considered. Remember, we started here. Here are the main points. Now, after you've reviewed those, and you don't just want to repeat them. You want to kind of review them, maybe say them a little differently, or do some of the highlights of some of the reasons why you think your thesis is important and true and worth agreement. Then you would move to say, now, here's how you're going to remember this. Give them something strong to remember your speech by. Either a question that you think would take them 2 or 3 days to think about, or point out to them that the next time they see something, some object, or the next time they do something, to bring your speech to mind. The next time you go and order at Wendy's, I want you to think about, or something people would do every day. Next time you're at the grocery store, I want you to remember this word. And that way it keeps the speech alive and plants a mnemonic device to where they'll think about what you had to say the next time they're doing the thing that's relevant to your speech. Remember, and then maybe a simple action they could take today, if they agree with you, something they could do to further not only the benefits of what you've talked to them about, but maybe further their memory about the topic and make sure that they are staying focused and staying attentive to whatever it was that you wanted to talk about, so they keep it in their head. You want to make sure they keep it in their head and that they remember and apply what it was that you shared with them. So that's the conclusion. Very simple. How did we start? Where did we first meet each other? What were some of the highlights of the day? And remember the thesis here. The next time you go and do this, remember blah, blah, blah. And here's a simple action you could do today. Maybe it's telephone someone, maybe send an email, or maybe to stop as a very small action, which then could snowball into helping prevent a larger problem in their lives. So there you go. That's the simple model for how to put a speech together. For the first speech, this is all you really need to do. Over the course of the semester, we're going to be going into a lot more detail here about all of this, but just refer to this lecture anytime you just want to see the basic components of a good presentation and experiment a little bit. Try out some stuff you think works. You're never going to be penalized in this course for being experimental or for trying something you think is going to work. I'll tell you if I don't think it works, and I'll suggest something better for you to do, but it's not going to mean that you fail or something like that. The only way you'd fail is if you don't try. So why don't we give it a try? See what you can do with the simple organizational technique that I've taught you today, and some of the brainstorming about the 3 Aristotelian types of topics you can have. And in the next video, we'll talk about some more detailed ways of coming up with reasons when we talk about stasis theory, which will be video number 2 for spring 2022. So yeah, this is spring 2022 public speaking video number 1.